The hotel manager grabbed the woman's suitcase by the handle and dragged it away from the front desk, like it was something left on the sidewalk. The zipper caught on the marble tile and tore open. A folded cardigan spilled out. A small pill organizer skidded across the polished floor. He didn't stop. He didn't look back. "Service entrance is around the side," he said. "This lobby is for guests." She was a guest. She had a reservation. She had paid in full. He just couldn't see that part. Let me take you back to 3 hours before that moment in the lobby of the Harrington Grand, one of the finest hotels in downtown Vancouver. Winifred Osei was 64 years old, and she had spent the last 41 of those years building something from nothing. She had started with a cleaning cart, a second-hand uniform that was 2 sizes too large, and a phone number she gave to every office building on Granville Street, until someone finally called her back. By the time she was 30, she had 6 employees. By 40, 42. By 60, she had built Osei Hospitality Services into the largest independent hotel cleaning and facilities management company in Western Canada. Her contracts included 14 hotels, 3 convention centers, and 2 international airport terminals. One of those hotels was the Harrington Grand. She never made a big show of that. Once a month, Winifred chose a property she hadn't visited in a while, booked herself a room under her maiden name, and checked in like an ordinary guest. No advance notice, no company badge, no assistant waiting in the lobby with a clipboard. Just a carry-on bag, the reading glasses she kept forgetting on her kitchen table, and a small spiral notebook she'd been buying the same brand of since 1987. She called it a walkthrough. Her operations team called it a quality check. Either way, the purpose never changed. See what people do when no one they're afraid of is watching. It was a Thursday afternoon in late November, the kind of cold that comes off Burrard Inlet and settles into your collar before you've walked half a block. Winifred had taken the SkyTrain from her house in Burnaby, the same way she always traveled when she wasn't in a meeting. She carried her own bag. She stood in the aisle and let younger people have the seats. The Harrington Grand sat at the corner of West Georgia and Thurlow, its limestone facade gray and immovable against the low sky. A doorman in a long coat held the entrance open for a couple in business suits who swept past without acknowledging him. Winifred thanked him by name. She'd read his lapel badge. "Cold one today, Marcus," she said. He looked slightly surprised. "Yes, ma'am. Hope you have a good stay." She walked to the front desk. The lobby smelled like cedar and warm light. The carpet was new. She noticed that. Her team had replaced it 8 weeks ago. Good work. She made a note. There were 2 agents at the desk. A young woman helping an older man with a mountain of golf luggage. And him. His name badge said Garrison. 30-something, broad shoulders, the kind of posture that's from being told too many times that you looked important. He was finishing a phone call, one finger raised at Winifred as she approached, the universal gesture for "I'll get to you when I feel like it." She waited. He ended the call. He looked at her, and something shifted in his face. It was the kind of look she had learned to read before she was 20. The quick inventory. The small recalibration that happened behind a person's eyes when what they saw didn't match what they expected to see at a $500 a night desk. An older black woman in a winter coat with a carry-on that had a scuff on the lower corner. No designer bag, no heels, no one standing behind her holding a second piece of luggage. "Can I help you?" The words were technically polite. The tone wasn't, "I have a reservation, Winifred Osei. King Deluxe, 2 nights." He typed without looking at her. The pause went on a beat longer than it needed to. "I don't see anything on Osei. I sometimes book under the hyphenated version." Another pause. Another slow look at the screen. Another. "There's a reservation here. But this room class has a $200 incidental hold. Will that be a problem?" Winifred set her credit card on the counter. "It won't be a problem." He looked at the card. He picked it up with 2 fingers, the way you'd handle something you weren't sure was clean. He ran it. He handed it back without making eye contact. "3rd floor. Elevators to your left." He did not offer to call a bellman. He did not tell her where the restaurant was, or what time checkout ended, or any of the 17 things the front desk training manual she had personally approved 8 years ago required him to say at the close of every check-in. He had already moved on. Eyes back to the computer screen. Conversation over. Winifred took her card. She took her room key. She turned toward the elevator. Then she heard him. He wasn't speaking to her. He had turned to the other agent, the young woman beside him, who was just finishing with the golf guest. He kept his voice low, the way people do when they want to be heard but not quoted. People like that expect 5-star service and then want to argue about the incidental. Every time. The young woman said nothing. She stared at her keyboard. Winifred kept walking. She did not turn around. She pressed the elevator button and looked straight ahead at the brushed steel doors. Her reflection looked back at her. Coat, carry on. 64 years old, with a face that did not give one single thing away. She rode up to the 3rd floor. She found her room. She set her bag on the luggage rack. She sat on the edge of the bed, took off her coat, folded it, and placed it over the chair by the window. Then she opened her notebook and began to write. She wrote the time. She wrote the agent's name from his badge. She wrote his exact words, both what he said to her and what he said after. She wrote the name of the young woman beside him. She wrote the doorman's name because he had been kind, and that mattered too. She ordered room service. Earl Grey, plain. She drank it by the window and watched the December clouds moving in off the water. She stayed 2 nights as planned. On the first evening, she ate in the hotel restaurant. The host took one look at her and asked if she was waiting for someone. He seated her near the kitchen. She moved herself to a window table. He didn't say a word. She ate a very good halibut and wrote that down too. The kitchen was excellent. Credit where it was due. On the second morning, she took the stairs instead of the elevator, which let her walk past the housekeeping floor. She stopped and spoke with the 2 women restocking their carts. She asked their names. She asked how long they'd been with the property. She asked if they had everything they needed. One of them, a woman named Felicia who had been doing this work for 16 years, looked at her with the particular wariness of someone who had learned not to trust unexpected kindness from strangers in hallways. Winifred told her she had once restocked a cart exactly like that one. Felicia looked at her for a long moment, then smiled. "You're the first guest who's ever asked us anything except where the ice machine was." Winifred smiled back. "You're doing a beautiful job up here." She went back to her room and added 2 more pages to her notebook. On her second afternoon, checkout day, she came back down to the lobby with her bag. It was busier now, a tour group filling the sitting area, a corporate event starting somewhere on the 2nd floor, people with lanyards moving through in clusters. Garrison was at the desk again. He saw her approaching with her carry-on. He said nothing. "No, I hope you enjoyed your stay. No, can I call you a car?" He looked at her the way you look at something you're ready to be done with. She set her key cards on the counter, checking out. Room 312. He tapped at his keyboard. Any charges to settle. Room service. 1 tea. He printed the bill. She reviewed it. She signed it. She picked up her bag. He turned away, and that was when he did it. Not at check-in. Not in a quiet corridor, but right here, in the middle of a busy lobby with 12 people within earshot. A couple was just arriving, wheeled luggage and matching scarves, the kind of guests who came with confidence already built in. Garrison's whole body changed. He smiled at them the way he hadn't smiled once in 2 days at Winifred. He stepped out from behind the desk to greet them personally. And as he moved, he brushed past her carry-on where she'd set it near the end of the desk. He didn't reach around it. He grabbed the handle and swung it, hard, out of the way. It hit the marble floor at an angle, the old scuff tearing wider, the zipper failing all the way. The bag flopped open, her cardigan, her pill organizer, the one her daughter had given her, with the days of the week in small brass letters, her reading glasses, a photograph she'd carried in every bag for 11 years, her late husband Raymond on the dock at Galliano Island, the summer before he got sick. The photograph landed face down on the lobby floor. Garrison was already looking at the arriving couple. "Welcome to the Harrington Grand. Let me get someone to take those bags." Winifred looked at her things on the floor. She set down what she was holding. She knelt down slowly, because her knees were 64 years old, and the floor was marble, and it was cold. She picked up the pill organizer. She folded the cardigan. She picked up her glasses and checked the frame. She picked up the photograph and turned it over, and looked at Raymond on the dock, the water behind him, the way he always squinted into afternoon light. She wiped the face of the photograph with the corner of her sleeve. She put everything back in her bag and pressed the zipper closed as far as it would go. A young man from the concierge desk had seen it. His name badge said Joel. He was already moving toward her, face red. "Ma'am, I am so sorry. Let me help you. Are you all right? I'll have someone look at that zipper we have." "It's all right, Joel." She stood. "It's not your doing. I don't know what he was. It's all right." She put her hand briefly on his arm. "You've been very helpful during my stay. I want you to know that." He looked like he wanted to say more. He didn't know what to say. She picked up her bag and walked to the sitting area near the entrance, away from the desk, and sat down in a chair facing the lobby. From her coat pocket, she took out her phone. She sent 3 messages. The first was to her operations director, a methodical man named Roy, who had worked for her for 11 years, and knew what it meant when she sent a message that said, "Harrington Grand. Sending notes. Full review, General Manager Loop." The second was to her company's legal counsel. The third was to the regional director of guest experience at the Harrington Grand's parent management group, a woman Winifred had hired out of a Burnaby property 6 years ago, and who called her every Christmas. She sent Roy her notebook pages, 11 pages. 2 days of notes in her steady, close handwriting. Everything. Then she sat and watched the lobby for a while longer, the way she always did. The doorman holding the door, the housekeeping cart making its quiet way down the far corridor, the tour group finally getting organized, the young woman from the front desk, the one who had stood beside Garrison and said nothing, taking her break now, sitting by herself near the window with a coffee, staring out at the gray street. Winifred looked at her for a moment. She was young, maybe 22. The expression on her face was the expression of someone who had swallowed something and was still deciding what to do about it. Winifred didn't approach her. She knew that expression. She had worn it herself at 22, watching things happen in rooms. She wasn't sure she had the standing to affect. That was its own kind of lesson. It would come for this young woman in its own time. Joel appeared at her elbow. "Your car is here, Miss Ibarra." She hadn't called a car. He'd done it on his own. "Thank you, Joel." She stood, pulled on her coat, and walked toward the entrance. Marcus held the door. "Have a safe trip, ma'am. Take care of yourself, Marcus." She got into the car. She sat back. She watched the hotel facade disappear as they pulled into traffic, the limestone going gray in the November light. She took out her notebook and wrote one more line. The same line she always wrote, on the last page of every walkthrough, regardless of what had happened. "This is not about me. This is about every guest who comes through this door without a notebook." Garrison was suspended before the end of that afternoon. Roy reached the general manager, a man named Stephen Keene, within the hour. Keene had been with the property for 4 years. He was competent, professional, and genuinely shaken when Roy outlined what the notes contained. He pulled the lobby footage within 30 minutes of the call. He watched Garrison's carry-on maneuver 3 times. He called Roy back and said, "We're handling this today." Garrison's keycard was deactivated by 4 o'clock. But that was just the beginning of what Winifred's 2 pages about him had set in motion, because Garrison was not new to this. Joel had known it. The young woman at the desk, whose name turned out to be Callie, and who had been working at the Harrington Grand for 8 months, had known it. Even Marcus at the door had known it, in the quiet way that people who work entrances know everything. When Stephen Keene opened the complaint file and began interviewing staff, the accounts came quickly. A black couple who had asked for a late checkout and been told it wasn't available. only to watch Garrison extend the same courtesy to the next guest without hesitation. A South Asian family who had waited 20 minutes at the desk while Garrison took personal calls. A woman in her 70s who had been directed to carry her own bags to the elevator, while Garrison personally escorted a younger white guest to her room. None of them had filed formal complaints. Some didn't know they could. Some didn't think it would matter. Some had just gone home, or to their next city, carrying the particular weight of an indignity that had no clean name. 4 staff members gave written statements. Joel's was 4 pages. He had been documenting incidents on his own, quietly, because he hadn't known what else to do with what he was seeing. He'd been there for 2 years and had never been sure who to tell. Callie's statement was shorter. She wrote 1 paragraph that Keane read 3 times. I was standing right beside him during the check-in on Thursday. I knew it was wrong. I didn't say anything. I don't have a good reason for that. I'm sorry. I want to do better. Keane sent her statement to Winifred directly, with a note attached. Winifred read it once. She replied, "Give this one a chance. She's being honest about the hardest thing." The regional director had already been in contact with the parent management group's HR office by the time Keane submitted his full report. The evidence wasn't ambiguous. The pattern wasn't deniable. 3 days after Winifred checked out of room 312, Garrison's employment was terminated, not for the incident with the carry-on alone, but for a sustained record of the differential treatment that the hotel had, until now, allowed to persist without consequence. Winifred gave 1 interview. She sat across from a journalist who worked for a Vancouver hospitality trade publication, a woman who had covered the industry for 20 years, and who knew exactly who she was talking to. Winifred didn't talk about herself much. She talked about Felicia, who had been restocking carts for 16 years in a hallway that most guests walked through without seeing. She talked about Marcus at the door. She talked about Joel, who had spent 2 years writing things down in private, because he hadn't believed anyone would act on them. She said, "The people who experience this the most are the ones with the fewest options when it happens. They can't send 11 pages of notes to a regional director. They can't call the company's legal counsel from the lobby. They just have to go home." That's not their limitation. That's a failure of the places that were supposed to protect them, and didn't until someone with a notebook showed up. The journalist asked if she was angry. Winifred thought about Raymond on the dock at Galliano Island. She thought about the photograph lying face down on the marble floor. "I'm tired," she said. "There's a difference. Anger wants someone to know you're hurt. Being tired means you've been here before, and before that, and before that, and you're still here anyway, still doing the work." She paused. That's not defeat. Don't mistake it for defeat. The Harrington Grand launched a full staff retraining program within 60 days, new protocols for differential treatment complaints, with direct escalation paths that didn't require a guest to know the right name to call, an anonymous reporting system for staff, a review of the last 3 years of complaint files. Joel was promoted to front desk senior agent, he cried when Keane told him. The good kind of crying, the kind that comes out when something you've held for a long time finally has somewhere to go. Callie stayed. She became, by all accounts, one of the most attentive agents on the floor. She started a habit that had no official name. Whenever a guest arrived alone, older, with a carry-on that looked like it had seen some years, she was the one who came out from behind the desk to help. Not because she was required to, because she had decided that was who she was going to be. Marcus still holds the door every morning. He says nothing about what he saw in the lobby that November afternoon. But when guests thank him on the way out, he makes eye contact now, every time. He used to look at the floor. Garrison was never employed in a hotel again. His name appears in one place now, a training module used in hospitality management programs across British Columbia. Not as a cautionary tale exactly. More as a question. How do people like this survive for as long as they do? And what is everyone around them choosing when they choose silence? Winifred still does her walkthroughs, once a month. Different property. Same coat. Same notebook with the spiral top she's been buying since 1987. The broken zip carry-on she replaced. Eventually, though it took her longer than it probably should have, she kept the old one in her office closet for a while. Not as a reminder of what was done to her, as a reminder of what she did about it. I think about this story often, especially the part that doesn't make the headlines, not the suspension, not the termination, not the training program, the photograph on the floor. Because that's the part that costs something real. Not the job, not the reputation, not the 20-minute delay in a hotel lobby, the thing your daughter gave you, the picture of the person you loved. The ordinary private evidence of a life that someone decided, in a single careless moment, wasn't worth moving around carefully. That's what indignity actually is. Not the grand gesture, the small one. The part that says, without words, your things don't matter and neither do you. Winifred picked up every piece. She put them back. She kept going. I think that's the whole story, really. What would you have done if you were standing in that lobby, or sitting at that desk, or watching from the concierge station with your heart pounding and your keycard in your hand? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know. If this one stayed with you, like it stayed with me, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because next time we've got another story that I think is going to hit just as hard. Respect is not a service you extend to people who've earned it. It's the baseline you owe every single human being who walks through a door. The moment you start deciding who deserves it and who doesn't, you've already told the room everything about who you are. Not your uniform, not your job title. You.